Nile Red, that's his name.
We are
Wait,
never
what?
gonna start the stream. We're trying not to let you start the stream. That's what's happening.
Okay, well, it's already started, so.
You started
Um,
mid-conversation, whatever.
Yep, it's the recording's happening right now.
Oh, well, welcome to the stream, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, it's not really a stream; it's more like a recording. But yeah, okay.
Our recording. Welcome to the good cast.
we could make it a stream, but
I'm sorry,
we'll do that
headphone
at some point. But anyways, we're on episode 33,
Return of
and but yeah, our topics are gonna be movies that are meant to be disturbing, not scary. Mainly those kid movies that have like creepy tone to it, but it's quote unquote scary, but not really scary. Yeah, and then the other one is media predictions, more in depth about streaming platforms and state of gaming, like the PSN, the Microsoft, the Steam, their origin, EA's shitty ass origins, and EA account stuff or whatever that they have for those platforms. But yeah, that's our thing.
We only have good things to say about those things. Definitely no complaints at all.
All right, I'll start off with them kids. Dark Crystal, creepy. When I was watching that back in the day, it's like, oh, this is not scary, but it just like is disturbing. Like the puppets, the way they move, and the fucking freaky villains in it.
Yeah, the skeksis are really, meticulously, creepily made.
Yeah, they were definitely disturbing. And then there was I mean, I think the second time I've referred to this movie, Legend. That was like 1985, Ridley Scott. That one had nice creepy tones to it. And then mentioned this one's a good classic. Everybody should remember this one, Teen Wolf. That was creepy when he transformed. That was disturbing as fuck.
Yeah.
I was all like, what is this?
I have never seen
Oh, did I? Well,
The Michael J. Fox one.
Yeah.
That one, it was creepy when he was like transforming. But then, that's like in reference to, what was that one? American Wolf in Paris, I think it was called.
Werewolf in
Yeah,
London.
that one.
yeah.
That one was more legitimately scary, I would say.
Yeah, that was meant to be.
Yeah, that was
where
meant to
Teen
be.
Wolf is like
It's like kind of
teen
funny.
comedy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
But
is
when he
still holds up.
transformed was fucking disturbing.
Yeah.
But what about this one? How about this one? 1988 Willow. Now I don't know what.
I've never seen Willow.
You never seen Willow?
never seen
Okay,
Willow.
that was disturbing to me as a kid. Like watching this, like especially the pig transformation thing. Val
never
Kilmer
seen that yet.
transforming into a pig was fucking weird. So.
Huh.
Put that back to back with if you're like delving into like some childhood weird movies and then combine like the actor and like watch fucking the shitty Val Kilmer Batman movie and then watch that, you'll be all like, yes, turn into a pig, you son of a bitch.
I know. He's turning into a... Oh my god, I'm gonna fat shame him. Turning into a piggy again.
He's been pretty fat for a while, to be honest.
Yeah.
I
There's
love
just
Val
something
Kilmer,
about
though.
that, right?
I
Like
love
the
the
whole... I'm sorry.
I was
Also,
just saying how much I love Val Kilmer.
yes, indeed.
Keep going.
No, all respect, man.
Indeed. Okay, and then
No
there's
offense.
Labyrinth with David Bowie.
I mean, he is fat. I'm not saying he's that fat.
David Bowie's like that David Bowie Labyrinth was like, okay, you're watching it as a kid and it's like, okay, that's fine. But then when you grow up, you realize, he's kidnapping a kid. Like this is weird and disturbing.
He was dancing around and standing with a huge bulge right there, man.
Yeah. And then he has like all these ghouls and goblins as his like disturbing little henchmen.
Yeah.
But and then there's the not that good of a sequel, The Return of Oz. This is kind of disturbing with some of its concepts. When you go back to Oz, it's actually like, it's kind of like you don't expect that they would take such a kind of classic, and it's very like chipper and bright, and especially the way it ended. But then when you go back, and she goes back to Oz. Or like not what's it called? Oz. It was called was it called Oz?
Wizard of Oz?
Yeah. It was like Wizard of Oz.
Oz.
Okay, yeah, it's
Yeah,
Oz. So the place is called Oz. Yes. But yeah, he goes back and it's just like it's kind of disturbing in the sense that nothing ended up getting better. It's like it's actually like freakier. Like it's not a happy ever after type of thing.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean?
Like it was before the big trend. Like it's probably one of the movies that actually started a trend of like, you know, kids story, fairy tale, but dark.
Yeah, and they added these elements that we started to question if Dorothy was actually going there or is this all in her head. That's
Sure.
what was.
It's like an Alice in Wonderland type thing.
Yeah, so it was like, yeah. So kind of creepy undertone. But yeah, that's the ones that came to my mind where it felt like it was too. Like it's interesting that it got past being the production part and nobody, like everybody was okay with it. Yet we have people and they're hyped up on censorship and stuff like that.
Mm.
Wait, who was? How were they hyped up in censorship?
Well, there would be like weird censorship for things that like it would not get past censorship, but then they have other things that does. So there's like this disconnect between like the rules and the what deems to be okay.
Right. Like, yeah, it's interesting how a lot of those movies like got away with like a lot of like bodily horror, kind of like The Fly, but they had to just tone it down just enough for you to like, for it to to get past the censors, right?
Plus, also there's other things too. Some movies get an R rated in say U.S., but the rating in like somewhere in UK, it's like it's not gonna be as harsh on the censorship.
Oh man, I'm watching that scene right now with the pig transformation in Willow. I thought it was just one guy, but I don't know. It's like a whole army of them just like turning into pigs.
You can watch it on Disney. Enjoy.
Oh, I'm just YouTubing that scene.
Disney Plus.
Yeah, that's the reason to get that service.
Watch Val Kilmer turn into a pig.
You can watch 20 seasons of The Simpsons.
I think there was like a part where some villain turned into a dragon or something, or some like weird looking dragon. I remember it being like this really pale, phallic looking creature. That's
In
what I
Willow?
remember. Yeah.
Mm.
Let me see this.
I've never seen that movie. It's one of those classics that maybe I saw at some point, but I really don't remember it. It didn't scar me enough. Which, as a kid, you're always looking for things to scar you for life. Totally. That's funny.
Well, I mean, this isn't really a kid's movie, but I thought it's just worth mentioning because my auntie was awesome and showed us Robocop while I was in first grade. So,
yeah.
looking back at the movie,
She was totally okay with
I
you
could
seeing
I'm cool with a lot
that,
of the
that
violence in
beginning
it.
scene.
Like, I'm cool with a lot of the violence, but the part that always disturbs me, and I think you guys can tell where this is going. But there's this character, Emil, who's like one of the bad guys, and he's a bit of an asshole. That's an understatement. And during the climax of the movie, he crashes a truck into this vat of chemicals, and he comes out like partially melted.
Yeah.
Like, and I remember watching that for the first time in my adult life, and that shit made me queasy. Like, I couldn't eat the rest of the day because of
Right.
how fucking malformed he was from the toxic waste. And I tend to overthink shit like that, going like, my God, I mean, what if that happened to someone in real life? You can't reverse that. All your skin and bones are warped.
Right.
And it's just,
More
you
importantly,
can,
what if it
like,
happened to you?
somehow I can look at the Toxic Avenger, look at Toxic, go like, that's cool, that's funny. But I look at
Right.
Emil, I'm like, Oh, God.
Yeah.
The infamous helping scene, and then when Robocop, not Robocop, but like the truck slams into him, and then he explodes into ecto cooler all over the place. And I know a lot of movies cut that. I know a lot of channels cut that out. It's a very gruesome and horrifying scene. Still, it does show the power of practical effects, and I think it's
Oh, yeah.
still in a very important scene, just
Yeah.
for anyone into special effects.
For sure.
Agreed.
Robocop
I mean,
it was especially filled with a bunch of those, really disturbing, looking things. Like when they pull out his brain and it's just like floating in that vat.
Ew.
God,
Yeah.
those movies are so bad. Yeah, I haven't thought
they
about
were-
this shit in decades.
And they were so
Oh, man.
marketed to kids.
They were. They really
And
were.
there were action figures of him.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, remember the replacements of Robocops? Like, that they were trying on the second movie, and one of them freaking, just takes off his helmet. It's just his and it's just his skull, just dripping
Yeah.
blood and just just muscle and sinew.
Yeah.
All the failed Robocops. Somehow, Robocop 2 doesn't disturb me as much. I actually ended up laughing at those parts.
Oh yeah, I remember those. That was so funny. Cause
Man,
like
I
all the
envy you.
failed ones was like skeletal and shit, and one of them shot itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I envy you. I was totally scarred after seeing that.
And, those parts are legitimately disturbing to people. I recognize that they are, but some things just don't have the same effect on me as they should, and some
Sure.
things hit me a bit harder than others should.
Yeah.
I guess
Agreed.
another
Happened.
thing I wanted to talk about that was also disturbing, and this isn't necessarily a kid's movie, but it still might be mislabeled as one because, well, animation, and of course during the 80s.
Right.
So
Ghost
I'm
Adventure.
sure we may have mentioned about Ralph Bakshi's work at least once in this podcast, but there's this one movie called American Pop. And it's about
Oh, yeah.
this Russian immigrant who starts a family. Like, it's about this Russian immigrant who moves to America, and most of his family's legacy centers around music. And the very first one, who starts the story, his name's Zalmi, and he wants to be a singer. And it shows him just trying to scrape by in like America, just transitioning to American life and just getting into performance arts and everything. And he joins a performance troupe. I forget if it's a circus or if it's just like a live show, but he wants to be a performer. So there's this guy who tells him, hey, stay away from the dancing horse. And because he wants to join the dancing horse act for some reason. And when World War I happens, I guess he falsifies his age so he could go perform there, but he does kind of a USO show, and he does the Dancing Horse Act. Now, during this scene, there's an air raid, and it shows like him, like he's a teenager while he's doing the USO show. But while the air raid's happening, they're practicing their Dancing Horse Act. And Zalmi's like, why won't my voice change? Why? It's like I'm getting older, but it's still squeaky. It's not getting any deeper. And like they just keep showing the air raid and then the dancing horse scene. And then there's this, just shortly after those two scenes come together, the dancing horse collapses. You see a pool of blood. You don't hear a gunshot or anything. Like he just starts choking. And he's lying on the ground going like, wait, and the other guy's like, hey, Zalmi, what's going on? And then they show him in the hospital getting throat surgery and everything. And like, then he's like, and the other guy is trying to make light of it going like, I guess your voice did change because the fucking bullet wound deepened his voice. But now he can't sing anymore. And that shit fucked me up. I'm like, that made me sick. And I actually watched American Pop in my adult years. So that one was just kind of weird looking at, because like the rest of the movie is actually pretty tame, but it's just that one part's like, wow, that's a bit intense.
Yeah, it's like a heavy hitting kind of thing that happens to them.
Like the way they played the scene out too, because the movie's rotoscope, so everything just looks like live people just with a slight animation layer on it. So it doesn't look too cartoony, but it still feels like a cartoon. But it's the fact that, you know, it feels like it could have been a documentary or something while still feeling like an animation. It's just, it kind of hits me a certain way.
Like
You know,
the
it's funny when you
cartooning, the cartoon effect to it, or the animated effect to it, kind of disarms you a little bit, and then it hits you with some like serious stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
it's funny when you're a kid watching, you know, special animation that's rotoscoped. Like, you know, you're so used to seeing how animation is done and how that one is different from other ones, so you can't exactly, you know, even if you're not, you know, savvy at that point, you're probably not savvy enough to actually tell how, you know, what they're doing, but you know it's different. You know that it feels like, you know, a different type of animation.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of classic where more popular animation that has rotoscoping in it. I know, like, it happened with Disney in the 1960s, so your brain can still tell you it looks like a cartoon. It's like it works well enough.
Yeah, although, you know, again, it's like that magic of like the magic of your brain, just knowing how exactly how humans work. That you can really tell that oh, for some reason that feels more fluid and more real than the other type of animation. You know.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, Bakshi. He always had a thing with his colors. Always, felt his color choice for like his animation always felt disturbing to me. Like they always felt kind of upsetting. Like I remember that movie, Wizard, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
And I don't really remember much about the plot, but I just remember like that feel from just from the color combinations and the use of like rotoscope in that movie to convey. I think it was scenes of like the apocalyptic war that ended up giving them that post-apocalypse in which the story happens. Also, I remember the nipples on the fairy type looking thing.
Hey! It's a family picture. You can watch it with your family.
I mean, I certainly liked it when I was a kid, and I had no idea why. I have a better understanding of why I used to like it so much back then.
And on a side note, if you haven't seen this before, I'd also recommend watching Fire and Ice. It's a nice fantasy movie that stays in its lane.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. It's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting film.
What is that about?
Well, if you like stuff like Conan, it's pretty much not Conan, but it is
like Conan the Barbarian, and kind of like the hardcore like fantasy.
It's a tribal fantasy, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. It's sort of more of a pulp type of old stories. Like
there's
fantasy.
still like witches and sorcerers and all that stuff. It's just that you're going to see less armor and more loincloths.
What kid doesn't want to see a bunch of muscular men with loincloths?
Hey, He-Man sold, so there's that.
Yeah, it's exactly like that, I would say.
Yeah.
Not with the futuristic laser stuff or anything like that though.
Yeah.
Or like going to or jumping to different dimensions or some shit.
Yeah, it was still the kind of fantasy that's like kind of like Flash Gordon, where it's fantasy, science fantasy. Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, fantasy has many different layers. There's so many ways to go about it. We were exposed to a lot of it, and people just mostly think about swords and castles, which is still valid, it's still nice, but there's other ways to take that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, almost the entirety of sci-fi, or like, a good portion of sci-fi is, a version of fantasy, but in the future, and with science.
Yeah.
So,
There's also like, soft core, or sort of the soft sci-fi or something like that, or hardcore sci-fi.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, Star Wars would probably, would be towards that kind of a sci-fantasy type
Yeah.
of storytelling.
It takes liberties from science and puts it into the magical part. Basically space opera.
Yes, yes. And I mean, you have, again, wizards in space with, laser swords.
Was Heavy Metal like that animation? Like, was that was definitely art, right?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that definitely had
But-
like a bunch of.
why not? I mean, why not discuss it if it feels
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's animation still too, could be easily confused from, as perspective of like, oh, I'm innocently watching this because it's animation, and then suddenly I realize, oh yeah, this is not meant for kids. Oops. Oops.
Awesome boobage.
Boobs. Yeah.
I mean, there's the classic animation too of the transformation scene in Pinocchio with the donkey scene that apparently lots and lots of people remember
yeah,
as
that
like,
just
being
hurt a lot of
incredibly yeah and it's just
You can
mean,
still
but
talk. Take
I
it
mean,
back.
that stuff, the fact, the whole like censoring thing, and then like having the like people that are kind of uppity about that stuff cracks me up all the time when they like run into they just don't do their research. Like, if they really think it's a big deal, then just do the research then. There was like this like funny
That's
thing.
wholesome.
I always bring up the whole like me watching Deadpool and seeing this like 6-year-old sitting in there between their parents, and the mother looking at the father grimacingly while he's watching strippers.
Rated R. Why that must mean
I was
really
cracking
good
up.
for kids.
That was cracking me up so hard. I was like with Brenda going all like, look at him, he's enjoying himself. Look at that kid. the kid's all like trying to, the classic like kid of like, oh, I'm trying to hide my eyes, but at the same
Right.
time I'm peeking, and then I'm like, hee hee, titties. I'm all like, oh, your dad's gonna get fucked up tonight, and she looks not happy. She was
There's
staring
gonna
at
be
him.
an argument at home.
The father was kind of cracking
Stop
up too.
by
Oh my
Target
god.
and buy some toys to distract the kid.
there's some parents who are like
What
rated
do you
R. What's
expect,
that?
though? Exactly. Like it.
Yeah, it's not gonna
What
do
did
anything.
you
I mean,
expect?
it's the freaking parent did not know what she was getting into.
And superheroes, how can it not be for kids?
It's a video game. Of course, we're gonna buy you this GTA, 80-year-old
Mhm.
Timmy.
Rated M, that must mean mothers approved.
I like that.
Oh my lord.
We
But
were just talking
yeah.
about that with my cousin who's like what 17 or something right now, or and I remember he was telling me, he's like, yeah, you remember Carlos, mom bought me GTA 5 when I was 7. I'm like, yep, I told her that game is definitely not for kids. And it's like, yeah, it was fun to get away with it.
Mhm.
Because yeah,
That's what it's all about, getting away with it. I mean, these shows and stuff, movies and whatnot, like that, just these slip in little things. I mean, we've always also talked about like stuff like Rocko's Modern Life. I mean, that whole episode with Spunky and the broom. When I first watched it, I was all like, man, Spunky's spending so much time with the room. It was like the entire episode was that, and it's like years later, me and Paula are watching that, and we're like, oh.
I remember when I was a kid watching that scene when his friend, the cow guy, no, the guy he's a bull. They go
he's a
to
bull,
the,
yeah.
they go to the, to the farm, and they, connect him to the,
Milking
to the
machine.
milking machines, and he
Mhm.
just super happy and falls down. And didn't remember. I remember not understanding it back then, and now
Mhm.
I'm just like, oh, oh, how did they get away with this?
Yeah, and then his comic book store has like porn in the background, like on the top upper shelves. Oh man,
That's
God,
that's hella funny.
that's so funny, man. Good
What about
times.
the one where they go camping and then they start picking berries, and then Rocco
Yes.
squeezes what looks like a berry, and out comes Sasquatch.
Oh
And then I used to think
yeah.
was that
Yeah, like
grabbing
wait
his
a
going,
second.
like,
Yeah,
"Ow,
that's
Is that his
so
nose?
such
He
an
is an
adult
adult.
thing right there.
Oh.
Like, really,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a kid. Like, this TVY7, no 7-year-old's gonna understand this joke.
Yeah. I remember.
If they do, I am worried.
Yeah, I remember watching that for the first time.
Either the
like,
parents
not
are very
understanding.
responsible or not.
I was a dumb kid. Like you always try to find dumb. As a dumb kid, you always try to find an explanation. It was like, oh, maybe he grabbed his eye and he looked, red at the time for some reason. I was not a very smart kid, and I also grew up into not a very smart adult. But that's besides the point.
You said it. I didn't. Oh man, but no,
there was
those are good. Those are good ones.
yeah. There was one scene in the Beetlejuice that always kind of just gave me the heebie-jeebies. And that's when the parents are trying to like scare their like the people who are living in their house. And they have to like and they kind of morph their faces into like this like
Oh
weird
yeah.
shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
yeah.
stretched their
Really cool.
faces and stuff. Yeah, it looks really cool, but then it was pretty disturbing.
One of them has like a tongue just like hanging out, and her mouth is like completely open, and the other one's like eyes are completely sunk in, and like the skin
Right.
is stretched. Yeah, and as a kid, you kind of like really, you kind of really receive it right there. Like you just feel it really gutturally. That was a weird
Oh.
movie.
Indeed.
I miss weird movies like that. Those ones that are like right there on the verge of like comedy and and disturbing and all about death.
Yeah. So basically, black comedy. What was it called? Like the black comedy is like where it's like it's not like if you were to talk about it normally, it's not something that is, I guess.
Yeah. Or gallows humor is another
Right.
term for it.
Oh,
where it's
okay, yeah.
But black comedy is still a valid term. It's just humor in a very grim or unusual situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot of movies in the 80s that that kind of explore that kind of aesthetic, like especially from Tim Burton, with the what he his first and especially his second Batman, where they have this kind of, I think it's called impressionism.
Oh,
Something. Yeah, but it kind of has like this more dark gothic aesthetic, and it's all based on like representations of death, but it's all for kids now.
That's what we need. We need more
Nightmare
of
Before
those.
Christmas being one of those perfect
Like
presentations
examples
of
of
that
it?
aesthetic, examples
Mm.
of it. Yeah,
So basically everything that Tim Burton does.
that he used to do,
used
that he
to
used to
do,
do
yeah.
well.
You're right.
I miss old Tim Burton.
I bet he misses his old self as well.
I'm sure he's crying himself to sleep in a in his bed, made of solid $100 bills. He just dries his tears on $100 bills. But I definitely miss that style quite a bit. Invader's Dim has a lot of that kind really disturbing, but for kids imagery. I remember
Mhm.
specifically this one episode where I don't know what it is, but somebody um, mentions that that everybody's organs need to be normal. So Sim interprets that as, oh, the more organs I have in me, the better.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
he
I think I
starts
remember that. And
stealing
he
the
gets
kids'
hella
organs.
fat or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ugh.
Like he has like at some point some a school nurse measures his temperature and he's like he has stolen so many organs that intestines are popping out of like coming out of his mouth. And it's like and the
Yeah.
school nurse is like, oh, look at all those healthy organs. Oh,
Have you ever
So there
seen
are his
his
origins.
version, like the same animator doing his version? Like it's almost like a pilot of Ninja Turtles. It's like really good. Like if you ever get time to like look it up on YouTube, it's pretty good. He has
yeah,
a interesting take on it, and it's not like disturbing or anything really. It's just
yeah.
very similar in style, but really funny. Like I kind of wish we got a version of his version of Ninja Turtles.
It would be cool. I definitely like how much he explores the macabre in his creations. Like
Mm-mm.
if you read some of his old comics of like Johnny the Homicidal Maniac or Squee, like it's all about that kind of really like gory uh, expression of like of these characters in comedic situations. Fun stuff, fun stuff. Johnny the Homicidal Maniac and Squee, definitely one of those uh, comics that I read in my formative years.
Yeah, he's a really good artist. Is he
He's local.
yeah, he's local. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Plus the
I know
new
that some people talk about how they get traumatized in their childhood by playing certain games that aren't necessarily meant to be scary, but they have scary moments in them.
Mm.
Like one example would be first seeing Clanker and Banjo Kazooie. I'm like, oh, you're just swimming in this little cavern, and oh, robot shark, giant robot shark, and it's just looking at you with its big old beady eyes. And I think while it didn't necessarily start in 3D gaming, I think 3D gaming has that sense of uh how do I put it? Like 3D gaming has a sense of unpredictability for the player because the controls might not always feel reliable to them, or the camera might not feel reliable to them, and they're in a space where they can't escape things very easily. So running into stuff like Clanker or running into the eels in Mario 64 where you're swimming, which is one of the hardest things to do still to this day in Mario fucking 64, where you're running into things that just look off or just too silly. They're meant to be silly, but they come off as more frightening for some reason, just because I don't know the way that they're constructed and everything. And it's not necessarily those two games are strictly Nintendo, but there are a lot of people who feel like we could probably breeze through them just fine, but there's some people that just get rattled by seeing that stuff.
Yeah.
Huh. Can anybody think of any
Or I
video
assume most of us can breeze through it just fine. I don't want to make any presumptions.
Can anybody think of any video games that kind of they found really upsetting or disturbing when they were kids?
I feel like a lot of games on the NES can be disturbing because in 2D, certain still images kind of have this negative image effect in your mind, so stuff kind of internalizes more. I talked about on Halloween how Capcom's precursor to Resident Evil Sweet Home was one of those games that really fucked me up in my adult life. But before that, actually, the original Ninja Gaiden games were kind of like that for me because um, they have some demon designs that really just didn't sit right with me. To this day, I have a picture of the final boss character in the first Ninja Gaiden, and I just use that as a reminder saying like, this is what you're afraid of. And I look back at it, it's like, it doesn't look like much, but around the time I was between like 10 or 12, that shit just used to fucking wake me up late at night. And I just be like, oh fuck, I had a bad dream again because of that shit. No. Oh, I guess, in 3D, there was one 3D game that did hit me the wrong way. And that was Turok. There was this
the original
huge...
Turok for N64.
Yeah, there's this alien that's kind of gorilla-like or orc-like, the Perlin, or whatever its name is. But like, I actually had one nightmare where it appeared in my fucking garage, and I had to run and hide from it because around the time I lived in a house where the garage was downstairs, and that was the only place where the second bathroom was, and I don't know, it just appeared out of nowhere, and I had nothing to fight it off, and that shit messed me up so bad in that dream that I started becoming afraid of it in the game.
Interesting.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm past that now, but it's just like the fact that happened.
Right.
But mostly it's just 8-bit games because the choice of instruments they have is some games just have some very off-putting sounds. Like, even if it doesn't seem like much now, there's this, again, Ninja Gaiden 3 rattled the shit out. Like, Ninja Gaiden 3 doesn't have a lot of scary images like Ninja Gaiden 1, but Ninja Gaiden 3 had some very disturbing tunes to me when I was a kid. It really messed me up when I was 9. When I was 8, and I just couldn't function well because of that game for a while. And I don't know how I got past that phase. I'm just glad that that's behind me.
Honestly, of video games that ever felt scary when I was a kid, I can only really think of Resident Evil 2 because that was definitely the very first horror video game that I ever played. And yeah, seeing like the gore was just kind of like, it just kind of broke my brain when I was a kid. I never seen a video game like this, and now some people are getting slashed in half, and one guy is getting a whole chest bursted right out of its chest. It's like, oh, that's so weird. I've never experienced anything like that. That's kind of
Right.
yeah, especially to to your child mind that imagines puts so much more imagination into it.
I think for me, Slaughterhouse was pretty disturbing.
What's Slaughterhouse?
It's like a old Nintendo, I think it was an NES game, and you play as like a sort of like Jason Voorhees looking dude, and I don't know, it's just like the graphics for the creatures were really disturbing, and the way the character was. Just I think the style of it, like of the creatures, were particularly disturbing. They tried doing a remake as well for that in 3D or something like that. I never played it though.
It's interesting. So, anybody has any more scary media that's targeted to kids to add?
I don't really have anything targeted towards kids, but it's sort of some of the veins we've been following so far where like we watched it as kids, where I grew up with X-Files, and I like from the time I was like when it premiered in 93 when I was 7 to the time it ended in 2002, like I watched every episode, the first airing of it, and there's a lot of disturbing episodes of that show, but I remember some that there were some that they're not even necessarily scary, but they were just really like there's this classic monster on X-Files called the Fluke Man, and he is this fucking disgusting toilet monster that lives in the sewers. and the design is so fucking gross. Like, I was watching that episode recently, and even as an adult, like it's so fucking disgusting. Like, it's got like this, like almost like, I don't know. It's like this ninja star shaped like sucker on its face, and this is a like man sized thing, and it like it'll bite its victims and leave like this huge gaping wound. And I think it's described as like some of the victims like describe like one of the side effects of being bitten, aside from it, like transferring its larva to you to try to replicate. Like it like one of the side effects is that you get the disgusting taste of having like a mouthful of sewage, and it's just like this. I really
It was like
That-
eating a
that's one of the-
KFC, huh?
that's one of those things where it's just like it was never scary to me, but it was really really gross, and it still is. And then there's a couple other ones where it's like there's another episode where like this serial killer guy, like he's an old man now, but he used to like kill people in like the 30s and stuff, and he was locked up, and he recently got out, and like somehow the killings have started again, and basically his like signature is that he like carves like sister and brother into like his victim's chest with a knife. He doesn't kill them, but he carves it into them, and I just remember being like that was super fucking scary to me. I don't really even know why. And then the last one, at least from X-Files, was that I can think of was this other one where it was like, I can't even remember the exact premise of the episode, but it was like it had something to do with like a cult or something, but like basically these women would like die in like this pose, like where they're kneeling and they're praying, and their eyes would be burnt out, and like they would just be like they would be like completely just petrified, and their eyes would be just like these smoking black craters. And that really freaked me out as well. Yeah, and then I guess there was another one that I was gonna do, but it's not aimed at kids either, but like it was something like I was gonna rewatch the movies by that filmmaker who's made like Hereditary and Midsummer and stuff. But I don't like those movies, and I was just like, I don't want to rewatch those. So instead, I went a totally different route and decided to watch a series of movies that I definitely have never mentioned on this show, and that would be the Resident Evil movies, because I definitely don't bring that up like every episode. And I'm bringing those movies up not because they're unsettling, but because it's unsettling how much I enjoy the movies. It's absolutely bone chilling how much I enjoy these stupid movies. They're so bad.
Hey, to be fair, the first and second one are pretty watchable.
No, they're not. They're all bad. Like
They
they're all bad. Like it's like I wouldn't recommend them to anyone, especially if you're a Resident Evil fan. Like, because they just so harshly bastardize everything that's like in the games, like all the source material, that I understand why like a lot of hardcore Resident Evil fans are like, actually offended by those movies. I totally get that. But for me, like just going through, like I went through all of them. I went through all 6 of those terrible movies, and I'll tell you, it was a ride, because I went through, you have the first one where it's, the underground lab, and then you get to the second one where it's Raccoon City, and then the third one where it's just like desert and Vegas for some reason, and then you get to the fourth one where it's like a lot of more Alice clones for some reason, and
all those movies are just so uninspired. The first one, it's the only one that's even remotely close to being original. Then it just becomes, it's Resident Evil. It's Resident Evil 3, but we're gonna half-ass it. And the third one it's Mad Max, but we're gonna half-ass it.
I mean, not really. It's not even. I don't think any of them are original. Like even the first one, like it's an underground lab. Like it's not like they didn't do that in Resident Evil as well. Like the underground lab is the whole like setting of the entire second one,
True,
as well.
but
So it's
they kind of they were inspired by it. I'm gonna defend that movie because
why
I actually enjoy it. I watch it,
I
and
enjoy
the
all
parts
of
that are
them.
not
That's what I'm
boring.
saying. But they all suck. Like there's it's not like I'm like, oh man, these are great or even good. Like they're really all trash, to be honest. But it's, I mean, you get to, and the thing is like the further into the series you get, the worse it gets. Where
Oh
you're
yeah,
like on the fifth one, and like they have a kind of an interesting premise where there's like different simulations of like different. At this point, the whole world is fucked or whatever, and like it's desert, and like you get to the fifth one, and they're like under in the umbrella underground like simulations of Tokyo and like Moscow and like all these big cities where they're doing simulations of like zombie outbreaks and stuff.
it's so stupid how this company just has resources, infinite resources out of
Yeah,
nowhere, even though the whole
yeah,
entire world has ended.
yeah, exactly.
There's no supplied lines. There's no economy. There's no way to supply them of anything. They're like, nope,
Yeah,
we still have like all the resources available to us.
correct. Even to keep making bioweapons like just a giant liquor, like a liquor that's like fucking like 20 feet tall for some reason. They never explain why it is that big. They never explain how it got there. It's just there. And you have to bring it in. And then they bring in all these classic characters from the game. Like that's the one that has Leon and it has Ada and it has Barry Burton. And of course, they're nothing like they are in the game, but let's just put them in for fan service reasons. And Barry
Yeah,
dies in about 5 minutes, and
yeah.
I think
Yeah, it's just a
Ada
whole
and
bunch of
Leon.
guys that are like they're just cosplaying as the
Yeah,
rest of the world characters, but
pretty
they have
much.
no
Yeah,
personality. They
yeah,
there is no
exactly.
uh I remember one of the movies starts with a giant fight between Mila Jovovich and all this monsters, and there's all oh no, I remember it's the one that starts with
The
with
clones.
her and all the clones like
That's
invading
the fourth
the
one. Yeah.
yeah, and it's supposed to be this impressive fight scene, but
Yeah.
I was completely detached from it. I'm like, wow, somehow
Sure.
they made it like a 10-minute Matrix Matrix wanna be totally boring.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
just yeah, and I love it's they really Paul W.S. Anderson is really the master of being a complete hack. Like he is a terrible director, a terrible writer, who he just shills out these fucking movies again and again, and yeah, I mean like, and then you have the final Resident Evil where I mean like it doesn't get any stupider than that one, where it's like, okay, now the world's population is down to like I think it's like literally like 3,000 or something. I'm like, come on, but it's like, but there's still hope, and like they bring back
we're
Wesker
all gonna be
again
inbreds.
because everybody's cloned apparently, and turns out Alice is actually a clone, of the original Alice, but she's like the perfect version, and
What does that even mean?
it's
A perfect clone.
I don't know. Like it doesn't matter. That's kind of my point. Is that it's all nonsense. But man, it is I can't tell you how many times at this point I've been like, man, I really feel like watching Resident Evil 4 and 5 right now. I shouldn't feel like this. Why don't I watch a better movie? And then I
Like
watch
Resident
those
Evil
movies
1.
again. And sure, okay.
I'm still gonna defend that movie for
It's
absolutely
really
no reason
not a hill
other
worth
than
dying on to defend any of those movies.
you know what, you're right, and I think we can agree to disagree, but you're wrong, and I will fight you for it.
Okay.
I mean, you're gonna win because karate. But yes, no, the only reason why I like to defend that movie is because it did try at least to be a slightly original. Like they changed they didn't have any original characters from the original movie. from the original video games, tried at
Sure.
least to have some sort of sense of suspense. And it did take its liberties, but in its with the material. But that's exactly what I think was best about the movie. That it was its own interpretation of the material.
Sure.
And that hallway scene, it's kind of classic.
Oh
That's
yeah, with the laser grid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good scene.
Honestly, it's the peak of those movies, and it happens within the
Yeah.
first 10 minutes of
Yeah.
the first movie. I'm surprised that we're not mentioning more anime, since they tend to be more, um,
Mm.
they tend to explore more of that kind of blood and gore, in the in their animation. Like the only one that I can think of and that really wasn't targeted for kids is Ghost in a Shell, just because there is so much of that imagery of bodies being twisted and exploding um and you being able to see like the insides of of humans that are partially mechanical and partially organic.
Mm.
Well, it depends on what rattles people, really, because like gore has its degrees where it actually can be disturbing rather than picturesque. I always find that images of decay are something that not going to see on screen. Where if you do, it's going to be controlled in a way where it's palatable. Because I think that's the part that can really get people. Like there's just, but if we're just going in general, though, I mean, if we're going back to anime, I'd say in the days that we grew up where video stores used to be king, there have been cases where children have picked up things that weren't intended for them. Like, I'm sure there are stories of kids thinking that, hey, Legend of the Overfiend, this will be just like Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z or Sailor Moon. And then they end up seeing a lot of violation and things tentacles do that you don't expect tentacles to do at that tender age. Or whichever happens, because I haven't seen Legend of the Overfiend, but I always heard of that as the go-to hentai title for a lot of people. I heard of other hentai like Demon Beast Explosion. I'm pretty sure that has some neat stuff in it that like would be disturbing. And even if you're not talking about hentai, there's some older audience stuff where you'll see teeth and claws going into human flesh and people just exploding into a bloody ripple wave of juice and stuff where the blood just looks more like juice is getting sprayed instead of blood. Like watching Vampire Hunter D. Oh, this must be Dracula for kids. It is not Dracula and for kids. Like, little things like that where people just pick up something because it's animated and it doesn't have anything naughty in it. And whoops, there's nipples. Oh no, I made a terrible mistake in my parenting.
It's like, oh, you're gonna have to explain it now. You've been wanting to avoid it. I was all like, yeah, I'm not gonna talk about this kind of stuff in a couple years. But then it's like, oh no, it's happening now. It's happening now. I gotta explain it now. Oh no.
Well, when a mom and a dad love each other very much, one of them grows a giant,
But
tentacle.
why is the other one saying no? Another one saying shut up. And why is the one doing the thrusting also punching? And why is she bleeding? Like, oh no.
Why is the big guy saying goosh goosh, mommy? Why is the big guy saying goosh goosh? Okay, that's jumping too far yet, but like still.
YouTube's
times.
like, no, ban.
It's okay. YouTube doesn't know what it's talking about unless we say the word fuck.
More like the robots won't understand. The bots will be all like, what?
I mean, I guess I could kind of understand if, because there are some things that kids did play, like Street Fighter. So imagine if you were between the ages of 8 and 12 and Street Fighter was still fresh off the pod, and you happened to see the Street Fighter movie in a video store, and then oh no, here's the shower Chun-Li scene. Oh, how do I explain this to the parents? I saw Chun-Li naked, Daddy. It's like, well,
Oh, I
there's a
never saw
conversation
that.
there.
Yeah, there was a shower scene.
Oh. Huh. I bet it was really popular with the kids. Damn it, I missed that out. I missed on that. Too bad, I guess.
Like, even the part where it was censored, it wasn't even that.
There's literally no story to it, too. Like it could be.
It really
fine
is just fan service.
Yeah, it's just literally a shot of her taking a shower. That's it. It's like
Yeah,
there wasn't like she's talking about anything important.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like it's definitely one of those things where censorship is like, okay, you know, like
Yeah, I mean,
it
yeah,
wasn't
anime
even
always,
important.
yeah, anime always plays like loose, especially with nudity. Like, you just take Ranma and a half, especially if you watch the uncensored one that we used to get back in Latin America. Like, there were lots of boobs, like, floating around everywhere.
Right. Well,
See,
you know, yeah, there's like, there's moments where like that the nudity was part of the story,
Yeah,
certainly. But then there's like stuff like that where it's like it doesn't, like, taking it away doesn't add or subtract anything from the story itself. She still has a fight scene with Vega after the shower, so it's pretty much there's no point, like you can take it away.
yeah.
It doesn't do anything. No one's getting hurt here.
Except for Chun-Li, I guess. I don't know. I've never saw it.
Sure.
All right. Anybody else have anything to add to the topic?
Yeah.
Not everyone at once.
I'm good.
Yes,
I'm
do we
good.
want to move on to the next topic? Topics.
Okay.
Which was
Media predictions more in depth about streaming platforms and state of gaming, like PSN, Microsoft, Steam, Epic, or etc. type platforms, or Origins, stuff like that.
off topic here. I really hope I can get a PS5 sometime before, the holidays.
What do you mean, like the next year holiday, or this, like later this
year's
year
holiday.
holiday?
Hopefully before this year's holidays.
Yeah, hopefully.
Cool. We'll make that next podcast topic.
Yep.
Will Carlos get another PS5 or get a one ever?
Stay tuned. Next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Exactly.
Will he ever get it?
I'll get it in the same amount of 5 minutes that it took Frieza to destroy that Namek.
Oh, you mean 5 minutes, which was only 5 minutes and was not longer than 5 minutes? Of course. Of course. 5 measly Dragon Ball Z minutes. 5 minutes were like a couple of weeks.
Exactly. Okay, so no one has predictions? I guess not.
I mean, it's been a slow news day, except for, like, I guess, current events that have nothing to do with entertainment.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's really entertaining. In a bad way.
Well, I mean, I guess we could do that some other time, or when we actually have other information because it's January, nothing's happening other than the continued backlash for Cyberpunk. There's that, but nothing on terms of platform stuff.
CES happened,
Yeah.
but there hasn't been a lot of interesting stuff mentioned for gadgets and things. I think they're doing a new OLED screen, but I don't know what's up with that. It's just improved OLED screens.
Okie dokie. All right.
Hmm.
We'll just end the episode this ways. I will see you all next time. Boop boop. Bop boop.